Pat Kelsey has done it again.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what's going on, everyone? Welcome into this Tuesday edition, the second Tuesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. This is my fifth year covering, covering the University of Louisville, third year hosting this show. And I want to take the time to personally thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, the show is free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Well, Pat Kelsey has done it again for the second straight day. The Louisville Cardinals have added a difference maker in the backcourt via the transfer portal. Xavier guard Ryan Conwell is a Louisville Cardinal. Huge addition to the Cardinals backcourt. We'll discuss what the vet brings to the table. We'll also answer whether or not this means no Isaac McKneely for Pat Kelsey's team. And spoiler alert, I don't think that this takes Louisville out of the McKneely sweepstakes. And also, we'll discuss what else is needed. The Cardinals currently have 8 scholarships filled. They're waiting on some decisions from some portal targets, some players potentially coming back or leaving, and much more we'll discuss at the end of the show. What a difference that, 15 hours can make. Going into Monday, we were awaiting the news from the Adrian Wooley and Isaac McKneely decisions. Adrian ends up committing on Monday evening, and then a little over 24 hours later, Xavier transfer Ryan Conwell does the same thing. Ryan had originally visited Indiana earlier this week and made his way to Louisville, got in on Tuesday, and committed on his visit. It's another signature recruiting win over a very good program. The Cardinals got Adrian Wooley over a handful of really good blue blood and SEC level programs. And then Pat Kelsey went toe-to-toe with Darian DeVries and ended up getting Ryan Conwell. Conwell averaged 16.5 points per game for the Xavier Musketeers this season, a tournament team. He was the second leading scorer, right behind Zach Fremantle. But Louisville was going to add a third guard to go alongside of Mikel Brown Jr. and Adrian Wooley. Ryan averaged 16.5 points per game on 45% shooting on 11.5 attempts from the field on a nightly basis, 41% from the three-point line, and 83% from the charity stripe. He averaged 2.7 rebounds a game. He also averaged 2.5 assists per game to go with 1.3 steals per game, respectively. Started his career out starting 21 of 32 games with South Florida. He then transferred to Indiana State, where he played for Josh Shirt's team. Started 38 of 38 games, averaged 16.6, and then really had his best college season this year, taking a step up in competition, going to a power conference, and doing a really good job in the Big East. The thing with Conwell is that he is a dynamic scorer that doesn't just shoot the three-point shot well. He is a potential three-level scorer. I saw a college basketball analyst out there tweet that Conwell could very well be the best two guard in the portal, which is saying a lot. This is Pat Kelsey swinging for the fences, connecting on those hanging sliders and sending the ball over the fence. But as good of a scorer that he is, he's known for how well he shoots the ball. 41% from three on 7.1 attempts per game. At Indiana State, he shot 7.1 attempts per game, 40.7%. He raised it a couple notches to 41.2 on 7 attempts per night in the Big East. That's a really good shooting number. That shows that you're one of the best shooters in the country. What makes it really exciting is that in the catch and shoot situations, he ranks in the 98th percentile. That's beyond elite. That is the cream of the crop in the NCAA. And I think to the role that he could play alongside Mikel Brown Jr. and Adrian Wooley, who are going to be able to create their own offense and also create offense for Conwell, who does a great job of, coming off of the screens and firing shots. And did I mention that Conwell is also a southpaw? Louisville could have two, I won't say shooting guards, could have two guards in the lineup that are both lefties. That's just awesome to have. Limitless range, 21 three-pointers made this year from beyond 25 feet. Incredible. So you have a backcourt of three shooters that are all prolific scorers from behind the arc. 39% from above the break on the left side, 40% above the break from the right side. That's where most of his offense came. When it wasn't from offense around the rim, 29% of his shot attempts came in the paint, where he was 55%. He's not just a shooter. He does a really good job of using his size, 6'5", 6'4", 6'5", 215 pounds, and is able to use that strength to get to the rim. Another good thing that I like, and this is when it goes back to when I started out basketball analysis and writing publications and hosting podcasts, it wasn't about Louisville sports. It was surrounding the NBA draft. I was a huge NBA draft nerd. And when it came down to skill sets that I found the most valuable that would translate to the next level, the number one skill set was the ability to create one's own offense off the dribble. And Conwell is able to do that in step backs. He's able to do that off the dribble, getting to the rim. There's so many different ways that he's able to score, and it just adds to the dynamic and how advanced this backcourt is going to be for the Cardinals. I want to read a statistic that Matt McGavick posted in a chat that I'm in, and I didn't really think about it until I had some time to go back over the statistic. Power conference players with at least 90-plus three-pointers made, 100-plus free throws made, and a 50% two-point field goal percentage this season. Two players. Walter Clayton Jr., who might very well be the best player in college basketball the past month, and Ryan Conwell. So, I mean, he's in elite company here. This is a huge addition. And there were people that had texted me asking, could Louisville go with three players in the backcourt? Don't you think they need to get some size? Well, it's going to be a rather sizable backcourt, assuming they don't add anyone else. Mikel Brown Jr. is 6'3". Ryan Conwell 6'4". Adrian Wooley 6'5". This is not a small backcourt. It's honestly, points to the contrary. This is a large backcourt, and then let's say you bring Kasean and Pryor back, and one of Sananda Frew or James Scott starts, and you're talking about 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", 6'10", 6'11". I mean, this is not a small team. I think that Wooley is a really good rebounder to the point where it's going to help them in that regard. You kind of wonder about the on-ball defense. I believe from what I've seen from Mikel Brown Jr. is he's going to be better than advertised on the defensive end. That's always going to be the question mark, is how good are these players defensively? Well, that's going to be something we have to focus on. But offensively, the fit is, of course, like a glove. This is an offense that gives you the freedom to operate and get your own offense and get your shots up. Look at Chucky Hepburn. Look at Terrence Edwards Jr., something we saw last year, something that's becoming true this year. 15% assist rate for Conwell. So the assist numbers might not show it, but he is a capable and willing passer. He had a 115 offensive rating this season, while having a 22.4% usage rate. So really good numbers here. Efficient player that Pat Kelsey's bringing in. We said that the Cardinals needed more shooting. What has Pat Kelsey done? Well, his first 2 transfers that he's brought in very well could be some of the best shooters in the conference next year. This is a huge addition. And I would imagine that, yes, Kelsey and company, they substitute a lot. So regardless of who's starting and who's not, it's going to be a situation where these 3 backcourt members are going to play a ton. So what an addition from this coaching staff. There was that report a couple weeks ago when Louisville got bounced out of the NCAA tournament, suggesting that the Cardinals had a huge NIL war chest to deal with, and they're going to go all in and support Pat Kelsey. They've done it so far. They might not be done in the near future because, well, the question now becomes, does the additions of Adrian Wooley and Ryan Conwell mean no Isaac McKneely? And I'm not so sure that it does. We'll explain when we come back on this second Tuesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. First, I want to take the time to tell you about our friends over at Monarch Money. If you're like me and you check your bank account and wonder where all your money went between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, whatever it may be, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO that gives you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center where you can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you just stop managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on fast food and going out to eat. Now I budget smarter and I save more. You can take the control out of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONCollege for half off of your first year. And before we get into the next segment of the show, I want to tell you about the title sponsor, our friends over at Gametime. One of my favorite things to do is watch my Louisville Cardinals live, whatever sport that may be. I love to feel the energy of the crowd and witness those unforgettable moments. If you're like me, you understand that getting tickets to games shouldn't be stressful. That's where Gametime comes in, making it easier than ever to grab last-minute tickets at unbeatable prices. I just checked the Gametime app, and there are amazing deals on some huge matchups coming up. With seat views before you buy, no surprise fees, and a lowest price guarantee, you can book with total confidence. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. The $1 million question at the moment, following the commitment from Ryan Conwell from Xavier, is, does this mean no Isaac McKneely? He visited the Cardinals program this past weekend, the Virginia transfer. It was a really poorly kept secret in terms of the interest from both parties. I mean, he fits like a glove in this offense, right? If you saw what Rain Smith was able to do, you see how this offense is tailor-made for Isaac McKneely, who is an elite shooter. He's a really good shooting guard. The question now is, you don't really have the starting spots on paper if Conwell and Wooley both start. However, well, let's go back for a second. Rewind to about 4 hours ago. There were some reports out of Knoxville that, Isaac McKneely had concluded his visit to Tennessee and hadn't committed, liked his visit, but there wasn't an overwhelming, amount of confidence coming from the volunteer side of things. So it gave me some optimism, thinking, okay, well, maybe it's a true coin flip. McKneely's going to decide maybe sometime this week, and the Cardinals have a chance. They have that third spot open, assuming that Ryan Conwell doesn't take it in the starting lineup. Well, Conwell did. So I instinctively thought, well, hey, I would really like to have Isaac McKneely, but oh well, you've got that other guard. And it seems like that's done. Well, it seems like that might not necessarily be the case. From a couple people, it was suggested that the Cardinals were, by all means, going to try to bring in all three of the transfers, Wooley, Conwell, and McKneely. And that's the main question, is how do you keep them all happy? How do you keep them playing the amount of minutes that they feel like they should play? Because I highly doubt that you start all four of them. But there are insiders out there that are suggesting that more good news is on the way. Now, as we know with the transfer portal, things change. They do often. So what's true on Tuesday night might not be true on Wednesday morning or Wednesday afternoon. Of course, I'm not saying that things will change. I'm not saying that those insiders out there that are tweeting that good news is coming and that Louisville isn't finished, I'm not saying that they are going to be wrong. I'm just highlighting what exactly is being put out there. And what's being put out there at the moment is that Louisville might not be done. Does this pertain to Isaac McKneely? Potentially. Does it pertain to someone else? We don't know. But from what I've gathered at the moment, as of Tuesday evening, the Cardinals are still in the running. Could this ultimately sway Isaac's decision? Maybe. I feel like we would know that at the moment. Like, the response from Louisville's side of things wouldn't be that, hey, we still have more good news coming, unless it's just not about McKneely and I am overall just looking too far into things or maybe looking at the wrong thing. And what's crazy is I saw that Matt McGavick tweeted an ESPN graphic of the starting five from the McDonald's All-American game, which is, I guess, technically actually going on at the moment. And it was probably a typo, but it had the starting five with their graphics and the players listed with their colleges they're going to. They had Darius Acuff to Arkansas, Braylon Mullins to UConn, Cam Boozer to Duke, Eric Ryby to UConn. And it had Nate Ament listed to Louisville. Of course, that could very well just be a slip up, and you just don't know. But I think it's just kind of funny. Ty Spalding tweeted something out, a video of someone saying, I think we're not done yet. And some other people tweeted things out as well. But when there's smoke, there's fire. And it feels like Pat Kelsey has another ace up his sleeve. And just goes to show you, the guy is cooking right now. Even if this was it, and these were the two players that you bring into the backcourt, that's great. Because you have, by the way, number one point guard coming in, Mikel Brown Jr. But if you had Isaac McKneely, hold on, let's think about this. Now, of course, we're just playing the hypothetical game here. I know that there's someone that was in the comments saying that I get a lot of recruiting stuff wrong, despite me not really making many predictions. I just highlight the possibilities. I talk about who Louisville's interested in. I talk about who they schedule visits with, and we break Louisville's chances down. I don't really make many predictions because, well, things change with the wind. I don't act like I have inside info when I don't. But let's talk about this for a second. Let's say that there is a chance that Louisville could still bring in Isaac McKneely. How would that work? For starters, we have to determine who's going to come off the bench, because I doubt that all four start. I do think that there is a world where all four could play big-time minutes because players are substituting often And it's not normal that Chucky Hepburn, Terrence Edwards, and Javon Hadley had to play upwards of 35 minutes a night. Like, that wasn't normal in a Pat Kelsey offense. That's not how things usually go. They had to do that because of the injuries that they dealt with, not having that large of a rotation. But if you get Isaac McKneely, I guess the question can be asked about, well, who starts? And that's what Pat Kelsey and the coaching staff make the big bucks for, are to make these decisions. But if you're going all in to try to win a national championship and try to take that next step forward, and you go out and you get 3 studs in the backcourt, because I think at the moment you still need a backup point guard. Could that be Kobe Rogers? I mean, potentially. He's coming off of a season-ending injury, and you wonder how he's going to translate from the College of Charleston level play to the ACC. But I think the Louisville Cardinals still need to add another player in the backcourt. And then they need to add some stuff in the front court. There's a lot of moving pieces. We'll see what happens with Isaac McKneely. I think we'll know somewhat soon, whether it's Wednesday or Thursday, on McNeely's decision, which is either going to be Tennessee or Louisville. But regardless of what happens, Pat Kelsey has put Louisville in a really good position. But what else is needed? How should Louisville finish out the roster? We'll discuss when we come back on this Tuesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. First, I want to take the time to tell you about our friends over at Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades. That's Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. With a complete inventory of 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need. If you need help with an order, Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service. For the trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use the promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order by going to supplyhouse.com. Cardinal fans, want to take the time again to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, the Locked On Louisville podcast, free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week, your team every day. We'll sort of be on standby tomorrow, waiting to see if more good news does indeed come. If it does, we are going to break it down in a timely manner like we're doing with this show. So just keep an eye out for the good news and know that I will try to have a show out immediately after following that good news. Let's take a look at what else is needed after the commitments of Adrian Wooley and Ryan Conwell. The Cardinals currently have 8 scholarship players: Mikel Brown Jr., Wooley, Conwell, Kobe Rogers, Kenai Roots, Ali Khalifa, Sananda Frew, and James Scott. Now, I'm not including Kasean, Pryor, and Javon Hadley in this list yet, because to my understanding, they have not made decisions on whether or not they return or they come back. So that's the first thing, and that's going to be a huge indicator of how Louisville fills out the roster, is by waiting to see what they do, because if Pryor comes back, he's going to start. If Javon Hadley comes back, he might not start, but he's definitely going to be a key rotational guy off the bench, and he's going to play a good amount of minutes. He's not going to come back to watch his minutes get reduced in half. Like, he's going to play a good amount of minutes. I think that regardless, you still do need a backup point guard. I think that Kobe Rogers could definitely be a player that you could put into the mix to give you some of those reserve minutes. But I still think that you need a true backup one. I think that that's going to help out your guard rotation. That'll give you 5 legit guards that you can throw out there. And with 15 open scholarships, why not go out and get another point guard? There's a chance that Louisville does have Corey Calker. I haven't really heard whether or not he's going to be with Louisville or not. If he is, that's 9, and he gives you another guard option. I still think with 15 available, with how many centers that you have on the roster, you can go out and still bring in another guard. If you don't bring back Kasean Pryor, or if Kasean Pryor doesn't come back, then I think the number one need becomes you need a good four that can put the ball on the floor and score, but also be a decent three-point shooter. I think you need a good defender at the four as well. And sort of same goes for Javon Hadley as well. If you don't bring Hadley back, I think that it means Kenai Roots is going to see an increased role. And at that point, you would then need to bring in another wing. Outside of that, I don't think that the Cardinals will do it. This is kind of one of those, what the fans think Louisville needs and what the coaches think they need. Maybe a Pryor leaves, you bring in a big man, but I think the staff feels really confident with Khalifa, Scott, and Frew, and then potentially Pryor as well, to sort of man the five in that front court spot. If Pryor leaves, maybe they add a big man. I would like to see Louisville go out and add a dominant five, because that is something that all the teams in the Final Four currently have, and the teams in the Elite Eight have or had. So ultimately, 15 scholarships, you can afford to go best player available. I imagine that Wooley and Conwell weren't cheap to get in the portal. So best player available with the budget that you have, going all in, that's great. Maybe this allows you to sort of play the waiting game with Nate Ament and say, hey, look, we've got our backcourt figured out. We just sort of have one missing piece, and that could be Nate Ament. If they want to wait and try to put all their eggs in that recruiting basket, they could go to the portal to get another wing, a larger wing, 6'7", 6'8", 6'9", that can play that four spot and be a good rebounder. Or maybe they take a couple of chances on some international players, or a high school guy that ends up decommitting at the last minute. You never know. There's so many different ways you can fill the roster out. The thing is, you can't play all 15 guys. It's not going to happen. So it wouldn't surprise me to see the Cardinals go after maybe some younger transfers that have multiple years of eligibility that they can sort of use this year as a growing year and have them ready for 2026-27, to where they don't have to flip the roster every year. Or maybe they go, to the international side of things, and they get another international player that might be 18, 19, that they can develop and have play for the next season. Or maybe there's a diamond in the rough high school player that they feel like they can help develop, reclassing option. There's so many different options at the fingertips of Pat Kelsey, and this is a great problem to have, because last year it was a matter of having to bring in a whole new roster, so you couldn't be overly picky, but now you can be, especially since you have theoretically filled out the majority of your starting lineup. You're just filling in depth, or you might just say, you know what, we're going to go all in. We're going to get the best players available, and we're going to find a way to make it fit over the summer, and we're going to go for that national championship. This is a very awesome problem to have if you're a Louisville fan, and we'll keep our ears to the ground and see what happens. That's going to wrap up this second edition of this Tuesday episode, or second Tuesday edition episode, whatever. We'll see you right back here very soon. Go Cards!